The Texans in years past, or like in recent history, like these past 2 years, they have made moves at the trade deadline. And, this time, I mean, they could make some moves, but if they make some moves, it's not going to be the moves they typically make, because like last year they traded for Garyon Conley near the deadline, and then the year before that they traded for Demarius Thomas at the deadline. But this time around, the Texans aren't one of the teams buying; they're one of the teams selling. So someone the other day asked me, "Sticky, do you think the Texans should make a move to fix their defense?" No, they should not make a move to fix their defense because I know some of you guys are going to hate to hear it, but their season's over, guys. Like, I'm sorry, but the Texans are not going to win 9 out of the remaining 10 games. It's just not going to happen. Not when you have Green Bay next week. Not when you have Chicago week, 15? Not when you have Indianapolis twice in the span of 3 weeks. So, yeah, they're not going to win enough games to get to the playoffs. Now, am I saying they're gonna go 1-15? No, they'll probably end up going 6-10 because they have like some winnable games, like Jacksonville after the bye week. They'll probably beat Tennessee week 17 because they're probably gonna be resting starters. They might beat Detroit. They'll probably split with Indianapolis. They could probably beat Cincinnati as well. So, yeah, like I'm not saying they're gonna lose every game, but they're not going to make the playoffs. Like, it's extremely unrealistic to see them making the playoffs. So what should they do? Trade away some players to get picks to fix their team for next year. Now, let me just say this. For whatever reason, and I mentioned this in my video yesterday as well, for whatever reason, some Texans fans seem to believe that Bill O'Brien set the Texans back 5 years. No, the Texans are going to the playoffs next year. Like, stop. So, trade away some players so you can get some young players to completely revamp your defense for next year. Well, not really completely revamp, but, help out the defensive side of the ball. But look, here's my only issue with trading away players this year, and that's the Texans don't have a GM. Like, do you really trust Jack Easterby to pull off these trades? Because honestly, I really don't. So that's kind of like holding me back from saying, yes, 100% go trade away some players. But other than that, I do think they should do it. And I know some people are going to ask me, Sticky, what about Kiki QT? Kiki QT has no trade value. You cannot trade him. What about Kahali Waring? Kahali Waring hasn't played a single snap in his career. He has no trade value. Sticky, what about Benardrick McKinney? Benardrick McKinney, he is out for the season. You're not going to trade him. So, those 3 guys are out of the question. Now, there is 2 guys who I think the Texans could or should trade. Well, I wouldn't say could. Texans should trade. And there's one that if they somehow manage to trade him, I would be so happy, and I would honestly go over there, find Jack Easterby at his local HEB and kiss him on the bald head. Cause if he pulls it off, like, it's honestly a miracle. And if you guys don't know who I'm talking about, Whitney Mercilus. Whitney Mercilus, in my opinion, has absolutely no trade value. The dude is not good, he's old, and he has a disgusting contract. But if Jack Easterby manages to trade him, like, I would be so happy. And I'm pretty sure you guys would be too. And honestly, like, the thing about this is, for Whitney Mercilus, I don't care what he gets in return. All I care is that he gets that ugly contract out of here. Get that contract out of here, man. Like, I don't care if we get a 2032 7th round pick in return for Whitney Mercilus. Like, I don't care. Just get him out of here, man. And if he somehow manages to do that, like, I'd be happy. And I think you guys should be too, but, I mean, if we're being realistic, no one's going to trade for Whitney Mercilus. I mean, let's be honest here. But now let's get to the two guys I think the Texans should trade. And these are the only two guys, besides for Whitney Mercilus, that I think the Texans should be looking at trading. And number one is J.J. Watt. I'm sorry. You guys probably hate to hear it. I hate to say it. You know, we love JJ. JJ is awesome. But JJ knows that Deshaun Watson is the future of this team. And the Texans have to do whatever it takes to build a good team around Deshaun Watson. Now, offensively, the Texans are pretty much already set. As long as you re-sign Will Fuller. Like, for the most part, on offense, they're set. They got Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard. Play Max Sharping, you freaking... just play Max Sharping, please. You know, you got Nick Martin, Sack Fulton. Even though, like, Nick and Sack aren't, like, elite-tier players, like, they'll be fine, you know? As long as, like, the next O-line coach is competent, the Texans' offensive line will be dominant. As long as you got Tunsil and Titus Howard, which they do have them locked down for quite a while now. So, offensive line's fine. You know, you keep Will Fuller. You have Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb, and Will Fuller. And, you know, these past 2 weeks, all three of them, you know, they've been doing their thing. And they've been, you know, performing well. So, as long as you got those three guys, you're good. The only thing the offense needs is a running back. So, offensively, the Texans are set up well. Defensively is where they need some help. And the Texans, you know, with Watt's contract, the lack of draft picks, it's going to be hard to really rebuild that defense. And J.J. Watt is not who he once was. Like, that's yes, he has good moments, but Watt back then, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, Watt, what was it? No, not 2016. 2016 started getting hurt. But, like, you know, Watt from 2012 to 2015, he was so dominant. Like, even when he wasn't, like, racking up sacks, like, he was still disrupting the game, like, taking on doubles and triple teams. Now, that's not the case. That's why you don't have Whitney Mercilus getting sacks and stuff. That's why you don't have other guys taking advantage, because J.J. Watt isn't that guy anymore. So, get him out of here while he still has value. And look, I 100% understand that it sucks. JJ's done so much for Houston. You know, JJ got O'Brien fired. Like, everyone loves JJ, but, you know, we need to understand, like, when it's time for players to go, it's time for them to go. You know, like, very rarely do players finish their career where they started. That's just the life in the NFL, man. Like, no matter how great that player is, it is very difficult for that player to finish his career where he started. I mean, look at other stars. Peyton Manning. Like, Indy loves him, but he ended up in Denver, like, the last 4 years of his career. Tom Brady's currently down there in Tampa. Andre Johnson went to, Indianapolis, and then Tennessee. Brett Favre went to Minnesota. You know, like, legendary players don't always finish their careers where they started. And as much as I would have loved JJ to finish his career here, I think it would be wise to ship JJ out now and get something in return while we still can, you know? Because JJ Watt's nearing the end of his career. Like, send JJ somewhere where you know he can win a championship this year. Pittsburgh with his brothers, and I'm pretty sure he'd appreciate that. Or Green Bay back home in Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure he'd appreciate that too. Like, I'm not saying send JJ to, like, Cleveland or something like that, you know. No, like, send him to a legitimate contender. And obviously, you're not going to get a first round pick in return for just JJ, but say if you send him to Green Bay along with, say, Kenny Stills, then maybe you could get a first round pick in return, because Kenny Stills, which is the next guy I think the Texans should trade, as much as I love him, Kenny Stills is wide receiver 4 on the Texans. Kenny Stills could be wide receiver 2 on the Green Bay Packers. Kenny Stills is a very good wide receiver. Now, shipping him along with JJ, you could get a first round pick, in my opinion. If you ship him out by himself, then you could probably get a third round pick for some team that is desperate for some wide receiver help. A team that is, potentially in the playoff mix, like maybe San Francisco or something, because like their whole team is injured. Because Kenny is cheap, and he's still like pretty young. For example, the Texans traded a fourth round pick for Demaryius Thomas, and Demaryius was like 32, and he was making like 14 mil that year. Kenny Stills is like, I believe like 28-ish, and he's making 7 mil this year. So yeah, he's very, very cheap. So he has a nice contract. It's not that expensive, and he's a good player. So definitely look to ship out Kenny Stills, because like I said, his talent is getting wasted here in Houston. And since the Texans season is over, I think it would be smart for the Texans to throw in Isaiah Coulter in there just to see what he has. If you guys don't know, Isaiah's, he's been on IR, but his 21 practice window was opened up last week, meaning he can actually return off IR now. So yeah, ship out Kenny Stills, bring in Isaiah Coulter to the active roster, and just see what he can do, man. You got to test out your young players, see what they can do. Like, maybe he ends up being good, and maybe he has a future here in Houston, like, you don't know. So Kenny Stills and J.J. Watt should be on the way out. Like I said, if you could ship them out together to Green Bay, because, Watt, obviously, he's from Houston. He can help the Green Bay Packers stop the run. He can help them, generate some more pass rush from the inside. They have the two Smiths that have Kenny Clark and J.J. Watt on the inside. Like, that's something you would want. They'd be able to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And they'd have a wide receiver, too, with Kenny Stills to go along with Devontae Adams. Like, they don't have a wide receiver, too. They have a bunch of pretty much scrubs, man. Like, yeah, I understand they have some other guys. Rodgers makes players look good, but Kenny Stills himself is actually good. So maybe Green Bay can get you a first-round pick if you trade them both. But if not, you could probably trade JJ for a second-round pick. Keep in mind, JJ Watt still has some value. If you let him sit on the roster, probably even one more year, that value is going to continue to go down, especially if he gets hurt again. So might as well get something out of him while you still can. And keep in mind, when I say trade him, he is getting traded to a contender where he can actually win a Super Bowl. And not only that, if you're trading him to a contender, you're getting not late round picks, but like late picks in that round. So when I say, a second round pick, it isn't an early second round pick. It's going to be like pick 50 something, so it's going to be a late pick. So for some people, they're going to say, oh, there's no way you could get a second out of JJ Watt. You're essentially getting a third, I guess you could say. But still, the Texans need to rebuild their roster. They have young players like Ross Blacklock, PJ Hall, Lonnie Johnson. Like, let them play, man. Let them play, see what you got, because this season's over. Let them play, let them develop, and see if they actually have a future on the team. And then with the draft picks that you get from dealing a J.J. Watt or a Kenny Stills, or maybe even both, you have more picks to help out your defense for the future. For example, you trade J.J. for a second. Yeah, it, doesn't help your defense now, but it does in the future because it clears up a lot of cap space. You trade Kenny Stills, clears up some cap space, and honestly, Kenny Stills, this is the last year on his deal, so you're probably not going to re-sign him. You're probably going to keep Will Fuller because Will Fuller, he's been balling out, and I think he deserves another contract here. And Fuller's contract, by the way, should just be an incentive-based contract with games played, injuries, and all that stuff. But yeah, like, Fuller's been playing good. He deserves another contract. Ship out Kenny Stills while you still can. Get something for him. Say you trade JJ for a second. You trade Kenny for a third. You use that second round pick that you got from JJ to, pick up an edge rusher. And then the third round pick you get from Kenny, you use it to pick up maybe a middle linebacker. And then, the second, third round pick, you use it to get a safety. Like, all of a sudden you have these young pieces on your defense to actually potentially make a good defense. Maybe not in 2021, but in 2022. In 2021, Deshaun carries you to the playoffs, and maybe the defense does something, take a step forward to all the young pieces that they already have, like Ross Blacklock, Charles Omenihu, Jacob Martin, Zach Cunningham, Justin Reed, re-sign Garyon Conley. Like, they have some players, and that's why I think it's important to let them play. Let the young players play. Let them develop. Let them get their feet wet. Maybe John Reed ends up being something too. So you just don't know. That's why I think the Texans should ship out, these veterans like Kenny, like JJ, and let the younger guys play, man. Get some picks back for the future, and they'll be fine. Like I said, O'Brien set the Texans back for this year. They won't be in the playoffs this year, but they'll be in the playoffs next year. So yeah. Let me know what you guys think. Should the Texans ship JJ and Kenny out? Should they not? And yeah, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.